I'm James Demer, the audio nomad. I'm in my new studio space, which I just rented. Actually, today's the first day I moved in, and it's basically just a big empty box at the moment. So pardon the echo and the bare walls. But you didn't come here to look at bare walls. You came to find out more about interesting IEMs. So today we're going to do a review of two HBB collaborations. They're both fairly new. One is the 7 Hz Elua, and the other is the Kiwi Ears X HBB Punch. So let's get into it. You ever go see live music and the opening band is surprisingly good? Like you're listening to them and you're like, wow, okay. Like I'm glad I came early to catch this part of the show. Sometimes I skip it, but these guys are really good. They're jamming, they're making me bop around, feels good. And then they leave the stage and a little bit later, the main event comes on and you're like, oh wow, this is so much better. Incredible. This is what I paid money to come see. That's sort of how I feel about the HBB Elua in comparison to the Kiwi Ears Punch. Let's talk about the Elua first, since consider it the opening act. It's $30, or $29.95 to be exact. It is a 2 dynamic driver IEM in a pretty interesting configuration. They're really side by side. The faceplate is brushed aluminum with some shiny raised bits. Well, I guess you'd say maybe embossed. And it actually looks really nice. It's kind of a matte finish with a shiny 7 Hz logo, which I dig, and then Elua at the bottom. The shells are clear plastic. They're kind of snapped together, it appears. You can see the seam kind of halfway down the shell. Nothing to write home about, but it looks decent enough. The cable I actually like a lot. The cable is a nice, thin, flexible cable. It has some clarity to it visually. Audibly, I really don't think that there's a whole lot of difference between this cable and, maybe some really expensive cables, but that's a controversial topic that we can talk about another time. In any case, I like this cable because it's fairly non-intrusive, it's decently flexible, and yeah, it's cool. I like it. It feels good. It looks good. It's a little on the short side. I didn't measure the length, but it feels slightly short to me. Like maybe if I have my phone in a cargo pants pocket or my computer is far away, I might have a hard time reaching. It's also a right angle plug, which I prefer straight angle plugs, frankly. I think maybe a right angle plug, if you're plugging it into the headphone jack on an airplane monitor or something like that, the right angle could be better. But even then, I probably just like the cable coming straight out of the dongle or the computer or whatever you have it plugged into. But that's just my choice. The nozzles are plastic with a kind of a little metal floral design. It seems like a lot of people are doing this floral design thing. And it's a 2-pin 0.78 cable connector, fairly robust. Again, nothing to write home about, but for $30, what do you expect? Comes in a tiny little box. This is the bag that the cable came in. You get 5 sets of silicone tips with this. That's pretty great. No carrying case, but for 30 bucks, I don't know. I don't expect a carrying case. And pretty basic IEMs. Let's talk about how the 7 Hz HBB Elua sound. They're $30. Let's keep that in mind. It's a dual dynamic driver set. I tried this set before I tried the HBB Punch, by the way, and I was very pleasantly surprised. They have a fairly neutral tuning. I would call it a possibly leaning towards a V-shaped tuning. They're not heavy in the sub bass, and the mid bass region feels slightly bloated, but I would say overall fairly natural. The high frequency response of this IEM is nice, good cymbal crashes. It's present and sparkly, but not over the top. It's not sibilant. Where I really had the problem with this, and I noticed it right out of the box, is the vocals have I would call it a very unnatural plasticky sound. It's sort of hard to describe. It's an unnatural timbre. And I heard it across the board with male vocals, female vocals, especially female vocals. Maybe it's because the vocals are pushed a little too far forward in my taste and in just the right frequency range that gives it an unnatural timbre. It's a little more in my face than I would prefer. I'm not quite sure why they sound the way they sound. I would say that it's more than subtle and less than overt, this sound, this sort of unnatural sound that I was getting. But generally speaking, I got used to it after 5 minutes of listening and was enjoying this set quite a bit. This is a fun and engaging set. It also does a good job at blocking out ambient noise because I got a decent seal and the fit is very good. They're not very big and they're certainly not very heavy. So after auditioning the HBB Elua $30 dual dynamic driver 7 Hz IEM, I pulled the Kiwi Ears Punch out of the packaging and decided that I would listen to the same round of songs that I'd listened to with the Elua. And wow, what a difference. Again, it's sort of like hearing a good opening band and then the main event comes on stage and you're just blown away. I was totally blown away with the Kiwi Ears Punch. I might even say that it's my favorite Kiwi Ears tuning and Kiwi Ears IEM to date. So the Punch, which is, again, a Kiwi Ears HBB collaboration, is pretty special. It's $449, has a dynamic driver, couple balanced armatures, and dual Sonian EST drivers. I'm not sure how Kiwi Ears and HBB did it, but to build and tune a tribrid EST BA dynamic driver set that sounds this good for $449 is truly something special. Before we talk about how the Kiwi Ears Punch sounds, let's talk about its presentation physically and how it looks. So you got a pretty standard Kiwi Ears box. I think they're all the same size. This one's purple, has HBB on it. It tells you that it's 3-way crossover, that it utilizes tubes, EST, BA, and dynamic driver. Comes with an assortment of tips and you get a nice little zipper case, and that's about it. Fairly basic. I think that's one of the reasons they can afford to sell this model for $449, because they're not spending a lot of money in their packaging, which I frankly appreciate because I'm not a big unboxing guy. But I do appreciate a high quality IEM and something that feels and looks good, and the Kiwi Ears Punch is no exception. The faceplate has this kind of a sparkly top and then pretty standard Kiwi Ears logo and a little bit of purple snowflake at the bottom. The left shell is the HBB logo, which is, it's almost like a Trojan head listening to headphones. They have the Kiwi Ears serial number and it's labeled right and left. As I've said in previous videos, serial numbers are important because it really helps with following up on customer service, identifying what drives are in the shell when it was made, all of those sorts of things. So it's a good thing. It has a vent with a stainless steel mesh cover on it, nicely done. The nozzle is stainless steel with a decent sized lip and a kind of slatted nozzle cover. The cable is really nice. It's a braided cable that's, I would call it a gunmetal gray with a purple and blue highlights. The cable doesn't present microphonics. It's fairly flexible. It feels premium. The tip, which is a 3.5 millimeter unbalanced tip, is pretty standard. They're comfortable to wear. I wore them for a long time because I really enjoyed listening to this IEM. And overall, I think it's a pretty standard, high quality Kiwi Ears product. So now let's talk about how the Kiwi Ears Punch sounds. What you see here are the Kiwi Ears HBB Punch laid over the 7 Hz HBB Elua. And you can see that when they're matched at 1,000 hertz, which is how it sounded to my ears, you can see that the Elua has a little bit more in the mid-bass region, and it tails off a little bit in the sub-bass region. And what I noticed with the Punch is that they are indeed very punchy. I know that HBB's library consists of a lot of classic rock and hip hop, and that he likes a forward and tight mid bass. The Punch really delivers in the mid bass. It has plenty of sub bass and a lot of texture in the sub bass region, but where it really shines is in that mid bass thrust and punch. It's clean, it has good emphasis and decay, it punches hard but doesn't linger, it's not tubby, it's not thumpy, and it's scooped out enough in the lower mids and into the mids that the mid bass doesn't bleed into the mid, lower mid, and even the upper mid range. So the mids and the upper mids sound very clean and have good timbre, super natural sounding, unlike the Elua, which has that plasticky texture. The Kiwi Ears Punch sounds so natural and so rich and musical. If you've listened to Tribrids with an EST driver, as I'm sure most of you have, EST has something special in that mid to upper mid range. The presentation in the mid and upper mid range is full and warm and luscious, but it still has nice detail, good micro detail, good staging and separation. And in my opinion, one of the most important sounds or sound signatures is a shimmer that you get with an EST driver that is just hard to get with BAs or dynamic drivers. So I would say that the Punch has really, really great mid-bass punch, authoritative sub-bass, a clean and natural sounding mid-range, and that rich, shimmery, high-frequency response. To wrap it up, the 7 Hertz HBB Elua is pretty good. I like the cable. I like that you can see the dual dynamic drivers. The sound is decent, it's musical, it's fun, not a lot of micro detail. If I were going to choose between $30 IEMs, I think there are better sounding IEMs in this space. But honestly, it might be personal preference. You might really find this one to be good because it doesn't have anything inherently bad about it. The build quality is great, it looks great, and it just has that nitpicky, plasticky vocal sound. The real star of the show is the Kiwi Ears Punch. It's a lot more expensive. It's $449 versus $30. Wow, this is an exceptional IEM. It's hard to find a Tribrid that costs less than $500 that's built this well. Shells that are as good as any acrylic shell I've ever seen. A very nice cable. But the thing I love about these is a tremendous sound signature that I think you would do yourself a favor to try if you have a chance. You'll be able to find these at CES in January 2025. We'll be at the NAMM show. We'll be at every Can Jam in 2025, and we'll have the Kiwi Ears Punch available at all of those shows. I hope you get a chance to try them out, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. This video is brought to you by Linsoul.com. Linsoul sells IEMs, headphones, amplifiers, digital to analog converters, cables, really just about anything you could want for personal hi-fi or even home hi-fi. Their prices are great, the quality is exceptional, and their customer service is really second to none. Check them out in the link below.